and was being transported to Baptist Hospital. And at that time, I will tell you that we were scared to death about Sean's condition. I arrived out at the hospital that night. I met Sean's wife, his family, and we held hands and we prayed, because at that moment, that's all you can do. Pray that the doctors at Baptist Hospital could save his life. As Sean has said many times, that's exactly what the folks over at Baptist did. They saved his life. You saw Sean Houle talk about forgiveness for Quinton Blocker, for what he had done to him. And I'm amazed when I see a victim like that of crime, violent crime, being able to look at the person who inflicted that pain on them and show true forgiveness. Sean, like so many officers out there, they get up every morning and they put a bulletproof vest on in order to go to work. In our community, we have to be sure that we support our law enforcement officers. In the city of Winston-Salem, we're down about 140 officers as of today, which means less officers out on the street, less officers out there to protect us, less officers like Sean Houle, who every day of his career showed tremendous bravery. Please remember to support law enforcement. Kernersville Police Department, City of Winston, Sheriff's Department. They deserve it. Because without those peacemakers and those peacekeepers, our world would be a horrible place to live. Sean, thank you for showing such grace as you spoke today. I could feel myself choking up listening to you. You are a good man. Your wife has been wonderful throughout all of this. And when I was there at that hospital that night crying for you, I looked over at her, and she's the one who kept me strong. And I know she's kept you strong over these last 2 years. I also want to thank my prosecutors, Matt Breeding, Penn Broyhill, who have worked so diligently to bring justice to Sean and his family. Thank you. Tim Summers, Chief Summers from Kernersville, thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting this man and his family. And to the town of Kernersville that has shown just such tremendous love and support for Sean and his family. It's humbling.
I'll be real brief. I just wanted to direct my comments to you, Sean. These three words kept popping into my head as I was listening to you talk: faith in action. The night that this happened, you went well beyond the parameters of your job, and you brought Mr. Bell home because you didn't want him to wait out in the cold, and that was a godly thing to do. And all throughout this process, you've shown nothing but grace and forgiveness and goodness, and I honor you, and thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your service.
And Sean, Matt and I this whole time spoke over and over about that one fact, that you were protected and serving, and you were serving an individual that you didn't need to that night to take him back to that car. You and I had worked together in district court, and I knew you. I knew somebody who worked hard on their job and loved their job. and to see even on that night that you're doing something to help someone else that puts you in this harm's way. And then throughout this entire process, just seeing every step of the way, the grace you showed, the positive attitude. It was a pleasure to get to know you even better during this, and just amazed by you and your wife, Ellie's actions through all of this. And thank you all so much.
The person you really want to hear from, Sean Houle.
Thanks, brother. Thank you. Thank you. Like I've said, this is a huge weight off my shoulders. I can finally move on now, my family and I, without having to give this part of the process a thought anymore, for a very, very, very long time at least. And that means a great deal to us because all I've ever wanted for this whole incident is positivity and to show what God did for me that night. And maybe in this world that we're living in that's crazy right now, that light would inspire something, some sort of a change, some sort of a movement, or whatever you want to call it, that we could start to band together a little bit better than we've been. As Mr. O'Neill said, my brothers and sisters in blue, I pray for them each and every day that I'm not able to put that uniform on again and go out and serve with them alongside of them. I pray for them each and every day. I worked with great people. I mean, great people inside and out, great people. And that's what I want people to, these are people. It's not a uniform, it's not just a uniform, it's not just a badge. It's not somebody toting around a gun, it's a person that's got a heart, that's got a family, a wife, kids, brothers, sisters, mom, dad. And they're out here trying to do a job that is extremely difficult, especially now. I just want us all, officers and people and officers, we need to, in order to really make a change inside of this community, inside of this world, we've got to come together. And there's got to be support on both sides, but we've got to support our officers. We've got to support our officers as they're out there doing this job. Because the sad reality is crime is not just going to stop. Like, it's not just up in one day we're going to wake up and all of a sudden all of the criminal element of the world is going to decide, you know what, I don't want to live that life anymore. It's not realistic. Crime is never going to stop, and we're always going to need people to be on our side protecting us. And we need those people to feel that love and that support from those that they're protecting. And so that's what I really want. And I want to thank everybody who supported me throughout this whole thing. It has meant the world to my family and I to know that I knew I served a community that supported law enforcement even before this happened. But after this happened, I was blown away. Ellie would come to the hospital and she would show me, she was about the only one who could visit me because of COVID going on at that time. She would show me videos and pictures of all the stuff going on in the community, the fundraisers, the blood drives, just everything that was happening. And I could not wrap my head around it laying in that hospital bed, what was going on. It was unreal. That's exactly what I'm talking about. I've never seen the community come together in a way like they did after this happened. And that doesn't have to just be that period of time after I got shot. That could be forever. And it was amazing to watch. It was amazing to feel. And let's not stop that whole movement, that whole forward motion. Let's not stop that. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much. We serve a big God, and He saved my life that night, working through the hands and feet of a whole lot of medical professionals. But it's because of that God that I was able to look at Quinton today, look into his eyes, and genuinely tell him I've forgiven him. It's because of that God. And to see him acknowledge me, to nod his head up and down as I was telling him these things, there's a seed planted there. I don't know what his life's going to look like 10, 20 years from now. But just maybe that man turns his life around. And that's, even if one person turns their life around, that's a win. So if Quinton Blocker can turn his life around, that's a huge win. And he did tell me he was sorry back behind the courtroom when we were leaving. So that's not to take anything away from what happened, because what happened was terrible. But God's working. And people need to see that and hear that God is working. He is moving inside of this crazy world, whether we see it all the time or we don't. He is working in this crazy world. That's all I have to say. Is there any questions that I can answer?
You had mentioned while you were making your comments in court, and I'm sorry we weren't able to record in the courtroom, but about that you have been to the cross and you urge him to go to the cross.
Yes, sir.
If you could just kind of tell me that again, because it's going to sound a lot better from you than if I just put the words in.
Yes, sir. No, I had a decision to make early on in this whole process. I could have very easily, and with probably a lot of people's support, said, you know what, I hate the man that did this to me. I'm going to be angry. I'm going to let that shooting define my life in a completely negative way. I'm not going to be able to move on from it. But what I was telling Quinton in the courtroom was, now the ball is in his court. Now he has a decision to make. He can let this shooting define his life. He's got to serve his time. But he can let this shooting define his life in a negative way. He can just carry on being the same Quinton that he was at the time of the shooting and before the shooting, or he can go to the cross and he can ask for forgiveness of our Father, because my forgiveness in the grand scheme of things is not what's important to him. I hope and pray he wants my forgiveness, but he needs the forgiveness of our Father in heaven. That's what he needs, greater than my forgiveness. And so that's what I was telling him in court today, is that he has the opportunity to turn his life around. He doesn't have to be the same Quinton that he was when this happened. Whether he does that or not remains to be seen. Only the good Lord knows what he's going to do, what decision he's going to make. But that was what I was trying to impress upon him today in court, is that his life could really just begin now. His new life.
Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Where do you go from here, Sean? What's next up for you?
So I'm going to continue working with the Billy Graham Rapid Response Team, and that's going to look like deployments across the country for natural and man-made disasters. They use me heavily for law enforcement related events. So things like, I believe it was McKeesport, Pennsylvania, that had one officer killed and the other that was wounded. They actually asked me to come up there for that, but I was here for this hearing today, or the sentencing today, so I wasn't able to go. But they use me heavily for that law enforcement side of things, given the experience and whatnot. So I'm going to continue doing that. I've been blessed with the opportunity to speak at schools and churches and just different places. I teach a law enforcement leadership class with a retired captain from the Highway Patrol that has been received really well everywhere we've taught it. So I'm going to continue doing that. And I've never got to spend so much time with my family before. Retirement's nice like that, I guess, in a way. So I'm just going to continue spending time with my family. I love the game of golf, and I'm going to try to play that a lot, much to my wife's dismay. And just really just spread the good news of the God we serve. That's what I'm going to try to do.
You know, it could be really easy to be bitter, and you mentioned in the beginning of this process that forgiveness was one of the first things you encountered. What was that journey like for you?
It was, well, this journey's been insane. So there were a lot of things going on in my head in the early days of this whole thing. Of course, there was a lot of physical pain. There was a lot of emotion. COVID was going on, so I could only really see my wife in person and some other people sporadically here and there. And there was a lot of video calls. I couldn't talk, so there was a lot of handwriting things. But I realized really quickly, very quickly, that a negative attitude about something, as hard as it may be to tamp that down and kind of suppress that at times, a negative attitude about something certainly was not going to help my recovery. And I had a long way to go to recover. I just had my last surgery a month ago. So, and it's been 2 years since this happened. So I knew I had a long way to go on recovery, and the last thing I wanted to do was fight a somewhat uphill battle from a completely negative mindset. And so I started thinking to myself, all right, how do you not just suppress a negative attitude, but just get rid of it altogether? And the only answer to that is faith. It all came down to faith. I had to just have the faith to believe that God was going to pull me through, see me through it, and He was going to put everybody around me that needed to be around me to kind of help make that happen. And then as I was thinking about all that, really forgiveness just settled in my heart, because if I could never forgive him for what happened, I would be carrying this with me for the rest of my life. Even with this being over today, I would still leave here carrying this with me because I don't have forgiveness in my heart. And it would always, because every single day, as hard as I try every single day, I do think about what happened that night. I can't help it. It's just, it just runs through in my head like a movie reel. The difference is how you think about what happened that night. So when I think about what happened that night, I don't think about, woe is me, I got shot. I think about, all right, I got shot, but then look at what all happened after that. Look at what God did for me that night. And so forgiveness is key, faith is key, then forgiveness is key. And that's just kind of, that's how my journey started, and then that's just kind of how it's played out this whole way through. How can God use what happened to me to do some good in the world? Because we need it badly in this world right now. We need it bad. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Any other questions or anything? There again, thank you guys so much for your support. I appreciate every bit of it.
Some clarification just on the federal charges. So that's a consecutive sentence running with what he's serving now in federal court?
The two sentences he received today in state court run consecutive to one another. The sentence he got in federal court will run concurrently with what he gets in state court, so at the same time.
Okay, so will he be then housed in federal penitentiary, or do you move him to the state now that he's been convicted?
I believe he will be in a state facility,
Okay, great.
but Mr. O'Neill may be able to answer that better.
That's what I was curious about. Thank you.
Thank you all again so much. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your support. And remember, especially you media back there who have been with me every step of the way, let's try to keep spreading a positive message if we can. Thank you guys so much.